No one's ever cried when I've showed them a logo, you know? But when you give them something special, it's a painting, and someone has a wee tear, then it's kind of like, ooh, that's... Hey guys, I'm Paul Corwell. Welcome to Open Studios 2024. This is my space. When did I start painting? Ooh, I've always, probably painting when I was a little kid, always painted and drawn. It was always my jam when I was little. And then had to do something at the end of high school. Couldn't really do anything else apart from art, really. So went to graphic design school, actually. So did graphic design for 4 years studying, and then kept trying to paint, but then kind of got a little bit swallowed up in life and work and everything else that goes in between. And I suppose it got put on the back burner, but then eventually it comes knocking again. You want to try and have a little bit of that creativity that you own yourself, that you're not getting dictated to from commercial realities. I think about 6 years ago, I started going, I'm going to really dive back into my painting and my drawing. I want to really see what I can do again. But I knew that meant I had to commit to time and effort and energy into it. So with that was me kind of working out how do I paint again? And I'd never done portraits, but maybe it's an age thing, but I was fascinated by people and what they mean, and you know, it just had a deeper resonance with me, I suppose. Like when I moved here 6 years ago, I came in here at Wharf Cafe. So I committed every day to drawing in my sketchbook. So you've always got a sketchbook and my big sketchbook and my pad. And you always got to have a pen and pencils. And that's just what I started doing for like 6-7 years. And everything started to elevate. And I would come in here, have a coffee every morning with my sketchbook and just draw. Just that process of thinking and nutting things out and trying to find direction. And all of a sudden, for 30 years, my drawing it had just flatlined. You know, I'd got to a level, but I hadn't improved. And then started doing that every day. I think it's not the drawing, it's the looking, it's the observing. And I've started to observe the things and the mark making becomes more intuitive, and it feels like I'm starting to get how to use a pencil now. I'm 53, you know, and I'm finally starting to feel like a pencil's my friend. So yeah, a lot of these are just projects that have just sort of been a natural overflow of people in my life. This is Kay. She was one of the first potters that I met here in Coromandel in 2019. And it was just lovely when I gave her the painting. She said words to the effect of, I didn't know I could show joy like that. You know, that kind of makes it all worthwhile. Eh? It's like, phew, okay, wasn't setting out to do that, but if you know what you've created has that sort of impact, you kind of feel like it feels more meaningful than doing a logo, you know? Alex, he was the barista in here. Oh. He was one of the first people I met in Coromandel, and he was sitting right over there, and he was tilting his hat to keep the sun out of his eyes while he was chatting to some friends of mine. And I thought, oh, he's his big orange beard, big feral beard. I thought, mate, I was looking for things to paint. I was like, hey, Stu, just a great, iconic, cool guy in Coromandel. Always so generous with his time, and whenever my daughter would have friends come up and stay, we'd go visit Stu and see the pigs, and he'd always come over and give them little piglets to hold, and we'd always have a good chat, and just so much character. These are just scans from my sketchbook. And these are the things that fill my days mostly. Probably 80% of my work would be sketchbook stuff, 20% might be painting. And it's really just helped me make sense of how and why I want to paint. So it's really, and not being precious with your sketchbook, mate, just, it's a visual diary, that's what it is. The first person to take a picture took this one. On my daughter-in-law. So I heard we were visiting her down in Palmy and she just said that quote and we just cracked up and I thought that's got to be made into a little picture. And there's this lady from Aussie holding this picture just smiling going, yeah, she was like, yeah, that's true. I was so stoked that was the very first picture to get taken. She'll kill me for doing this. Sorry, Ants. Sorry, Antonia. You do the crime, you do the time. It's a more rewarding end result, I think. And learning to keep parts of the painting, like sometimes you do your sketch or you map it out and you do your undercoats and you brush it in, and those parts are enough. You know, like down here it's really loose in this collar. And I think actually I don't have to go in and fill that in. You know, a few years ago I thought, oh, that's not finished, I've got to fill that in. But you don't, you know, it's like it says what it's trying to communicate. Yeah, I think when you're being more genuine, you end up having conversations with people that appreciate what you're doing anyway. Well, I mean, I'm working it out. I think we're always still trying to find our way. We're always going to be struggling and battling with stuff one way or another. But the other thing is just give yourself a break too. Like every painting I do, I'm mostly unhappy with to some degree. But I'm learning to go, 20% of that painting, I feel it's really good. I like that. And I'm learning to accept that a big chunk of the painting's not going to cut it. Everyone else, you know, other people might not see it, but for me, you've got to take your joy from the parts that work. And next time you might get 30% right. You might get 5% right, doesn't matter, just keep going, eh? Everyone paints for a different reason. Everyone has different motives and objectives, I suppose, I don't know. But if you're really just doing it for the love of it, yeah, I don't see I do my graphic design job as a means to an end. It means that I can paint with a freedom. So I don't see that as, like, that's taking 2 or 3 or 4 days of my week that I can't paint. I don't see it like that. I see as that giving, those 3 or 4 days give me the freedom to paint for 2 days however I want. I don't have to paint for anyone else's. Like in the past I was painting more detailed. I think I want to paint brushier now. It feels like that's leading me in there. Like I know I could paint quite detailed and then people go, oh wow, but maybe that's me just somehow trying to stroke my own ego or something. I don't know. Whereas the brush feels more sincere and genuine, you know, and there's more of an unknown. I start the painting, I don't really quite know how it's going to unfold, and then I get to the end and go, oh wow, I did this and did that, and some bits don't work, but other bits do, and there's a bit more of a journey of discovery. Sounds a bit. I think the thing that I've found probably one of the most important is to just stay true to doing what you really feel like you want to paint. I think there is so much stuff you can see online and in galleries and everywhere else that you can get a bit almost like a possum in the headlights. Like, what do I do? How do I paint? But I think we're always going to struggle and learn to go with what feels right, but just got to listen to that little voice.